Welcome back to the channel, Real Repairs for Real Customers, the one reality show that does not necessarily feature beautiful people. Now, a few videos ago, we highlighted the fact that we want to strive for quality repairs and not be happy with saying, well, it's better than it was. But in that same video, we also mentioned that sometimes dealers, that is car dealers, request us to do work when the item is not really repairable. How do we handle that? So do not consider this video to be about a really quality repair. Consider this video as a counterpoint to the previous video. Now, if you're not in the repair business, you might take exception to the fact that we would try to repair something that is not repairable. You might object to it, be appalled even or offended that we would try to do such a thing. But you know that we don't live in a utopian society. We live in a society where we have to cope with existing circumstances. And so when we talk about this type of dealer request, we're talking about how can we cope with it when we know that we cannot produce a retail quality kind of repair. So let's take a look at some of the options available to us. And for our subject of discussion, let's take a look at this seat. We could ask ourselves what could be done about the cloth and how can we fix the structural foam. And the intent of this repair was to address the subject of repairing the structural foam from the top side, that is, with the seat cover still on, without removing the seat. Can we do that in a mobile setting? That's a good question. Before we do that, however, let's take a look at repairing structural foam first from an upholsterer's perspective. I kept trying to get this customer to take this to an upholstery shop, but he insisted I do it and threw me a fistful of money. So here we go. This is the Lexus GX, I believe. For this job, I am leaving the seat in the vehicle, just loosening everything up. I'm cutting these hog rings out, and we'll pull the seat cover off by undoing the J channels from underneath. Of course, that necessitates taking the trim off to get to the J channels. Then the foam lifts right out. Now I'm going to select a structural foam. I press down, and you can feel the resistance with your thumb, and you can see how much pushback you get. So some of these foams I have, for example, this light foam, it doesn't offer me any resistance at all. So that's too light duty to be used as a structural foam in this application. I have another medium density, and you can tell just by pinching it, it doesn't offer as much resistance as the factory foam. So it's in the medium pushback variety. I do, however, happen to have in stock several sheets of this high density foam. And what you can tell from this is it does have a similar pushback to the factory foam. So this is what I'm going to use because it's in stock. So I'm going to make a measurement of the scope of our damage, and then we'll cut some foam to fit that area. It's about 2 inches deep. My foam happens to be 1 inch, so we'll have to double layer it. And I'm going to square off the end by eye. Don't try this at home. Now, as a disclaimer, I am not an upholsterer. I never have been. So the idea here is just to show some very basic principles. Please consult an upholsterer. We have one expert upholsterer that comments on this channel quite a bit. His name is Mike. I consider Mike to be an integral part of this channel because he's an excellent sounding board for me. And I'm sure that he will offer some helpful suggestions or set me straight on this part of the video, and we welcome all of that. One of Mike's helpful suggestions is to use some half-inch self-adhesive felt on those Dodge door panels. And he's not stuck to the shop. He can go out and do excellent field repairs as well. Now, an upholsterer would have some adhesive already in his gun, ready to shoot these. You might, however, want to use the contact adhesive in an aerosol can. We did a quick edit here, but bear in mind that you need to allow adequate time for that contact cement to dry before sticking the pieces together. So now we can cut the seat to match our repair piece. Just like carving a ham. And that's going to work. So you can use one or two applications of contact cement, again making sure that you allow sufficient drying time after before assembling the pieces. Then all we have to do is take our knife and make our repair plug conform to the contour of our seat. So I'm going to cut it as close as possible to the contour. If you want, you can use a flap disc to smooth it out a little bit more. Now, because our leather will show every little imperfection of the foam, what I'm going to do is add another piece of foam that will cover this entire bolster area. That way we'll have one smooth layer there for the leather to rest on. The other advantage of that layer is that it will help hold all of these pieces together. And now the foam is ready to be put back into the seat. And we've attached the new leather seat cover with the hog rings and the J channels, put the trim on, and now we have to refinish the seat backrest, and we'll do the passenger seat to match. So with those basic principles in mind, let's see if we can apply that to our cloth seat in a mobile setting. I've put up this still shot of our subject seat because I failed to record the initial part of it. I thought I was recording, taking a razor blade and slicing this a little wider to the left and a little wider to the right. But then on looking, it wasn't on record at all. That happens sometimes, and more often than we wish. I did a whole repair video one time and failed to record anything. But then again, we have just a 5-legged production crew here, me and Mr. Tripod. And I'm really quite busy working, and he's just standing there. So we should call it Ding Dong Productions. What's interesting about the damage is that we still have the French seam holding everything together, and that's about it. But the whole trick to getting access is knowing that we can split this seam left and right with the razor blade and open this up, knowing that we can use the double needle blind stitch to put everything back together. It's having full confidence in that double needle blind stitch that allows us to work from the top side. And of course, the steps that we're going to take are identical to what we just did on the Lexus seat. We have power on the van so that we can use this electric knife. We have the fit that we need. And the nice thing about working outside, especially in the warm weather, is that this glue seems to dry really quickly, and that'll speed the job along. And while we're waiting for our glue to dry on our structural foam, we can be preparing our top layer of foam, and so we're making the best use of our time. Now it's inserting the structural foam and trimming to the contour of the seat. Now for our top smoothing layer, it's just a matter of reaching up in there and getting it situated up in place, but we have plenty of room here to reach our hand as far back and as far forward as we need to get that thing to lay out good. Now, originally there was a French seam here. We are not going to put the French seam back in by hand. We're simply going to use the double needle blind stitch. So it's going to be a different seam. It's going to appear as what we call a straight stitch. But we know we can make this straight stitch look sewing machine neat with our double needle blind stitch. And that's the compromise that this customer is getting on this seat. Now, just for some background information, this is a truck seat, and it was blown out, as you could tell, pretty badly. And all the dealership wanted me to do is close it up. That was the instructions. Close it up. There's also not a back glass in the truck. And so what the dealership knows is that if they can just close up the hole in the seat and put a back glass in this old truck, this truck is not going to last very long on the lot whatsoever. That's the other thing to keep in mind when we tackle these jobs that the dealership asks us to do and we think the repair is going to be marginal, is we are doing our craft, but we have to give the dealership credit for working their craft. They sell vehicles. They might have a number of customers that they can call that are looking for just such an old truck, maybe just to kick around on the farm, or maybe to haul trash, or maybe to pull a boat, where they don't mind backing the truck into some salt water and letting it rust out. So there are many people looking for these older trucks. And so just to put that truck into some sort of a condition where it has a little bit more curb appeal, that's all they want. And that's all the customer wants. The customer probably is not even concerned about the blowout on the seat, but the dealership is doing a little bit to make it presentable. And the point is, the dealership is not going to send this to an upholstery shop. He is dead set against taking this vehicle to the upholstery shop at all. He wants to do the very minimum on this, and so this is our compromise in order to close up the seat the way he asked. We're not obligated to put the French seam back in, just close it up. As a matter of fact, I recently had a boat repair to do where I told the customer that it wasn't going to be the best repair, but he said, I just want it to be not a hole. So that's what we're doing here, not a hole. As instructed. The other compromise we've run into here is that we have had to pull this so far that now the seat foam is really compressed, meaning it's going to stretch out the fabric a little bit and you are going to see some threads. And in that circumstance, we can touch up the thread if we feel like we need to. We could leave it if we felt like that's okay. We could add some fibers over top of that thread to hide it. We're going to have to put a little fiber in the hole that you see showing up as white right there anyway. So when a dealership asks us to repair something that's not necessarily repairable, we do have the option to decline. But Probably our good customers know us as being the answer person. They look to us for the solution, and we need to come up with a solution. And oftentimes, we have our customers to thank for pushing us to invent something, for stretching the limits of what we think we can do. And that leads to creativity. They say necessity is the mother of invention, and that would be the case here. For me, it was the double needle blind stitch that made all the difference. Some of you who were in my classes in times past might remember this repair where the seat originally had a blind stitch, so putting the blind stitch back in made it look factory. But if we can't make it look like a OEM panel, the compromise that we've made, such as in our repair today, will serve very well. So the bottom line here is if you have full confidence in your double needle blind stitch, you can open up any seat and repair the structural foam from up top. This is a seat that you didn't have to pass up. It's money you didn't have to pass up. And for this truck in particular, once the rear glass was put in, this truck sold within 2 days. It was gone. And we like it when that happens. Thanks for watching.